Israeli military maps have failed to reflect the true extent of the country's territorial control since the war on Gaza began on October 7th, 2023. A new probe by Al Jazeera's open-source investigation unit reveals that Israeli forces have established a de facto military footprint across the Gaza Strip. Southern Lebanon and southern Syria, covering approximately 1,000 kilometres, 386 square miles, a size larger than the whole of New York City. This newly controlled territory amounts to roughly 5% of Israel's total landmass prior to October 2023, which includes the occupied Palestinian territories and the occupied Syrian Golan Heights.
Germany won their first opening match at a World Cup since lifting the trophy in 2014 as they eased to a 7-1 win against debutants Curaçao in their opening Group E match in Houston, Texas in the United States. The Germans will face stiffer tests against group rivals Ecuador and Ivory Coast, but Sunday's win against the tiny Caribbean nation puts them in a good position to progress to the knockout stages for the first time since 2014. At least 12 people have been killed in a plane crash in Missouri in the Midwestern United States. According to authorities, the crash on Sunday was near Butler Memorial Airport in Bates County, south of the state's largest city, Kansas City.
Former Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton won his first race as part of the legendary Ferrari team, capturing victory at the Barcelona-Catalunya Grand Prix in Spain on Sunday. The triumph came in his 31st race with Ferrari in a year of resurgence for Hamilton. The 41-year-old is in second place in the driver standings, trailing teenager Kimi Antonelli, who was seeking his 6th consecutive victory for his Mercedes team.
Germany won their first opening match at a World Cup since lifting the trophy in 2014 as they eased to a 7-1 win against debutants Curaçao in their opening Group E match in Houston. On Sunday, the Germans will face stiffer tests against group rivals Ecuador and Ivory Coast. But the win against the tiny Caribbean nation puts them in a good position to progress to the knockout stages for the first time since 2014.
Leaders of some of the world's largest economies will gather in France for the annual G7 summit this week. It's the first meeting since the start of the Iran war, which has led to clear divisions in the group, as members accuse the United States of a lack of coordination before launching its attacks.
India made the perfect start to their Women's 2020 World Cup campaign with a 64-run win against Pakistan on Sunday. Harmanpreet Kaur's side dominated from start to finish in their opening group game of the tournament at Edgbaston. Russian President Vladimir Putin held a phone call with US President Donald Trump on Sunday, during which he congratulated him on his 80th birthday and discussed bilateral relations between Moscow and Washington, according to the Kremlin. During the conversation, which lasted just under an hour, Trump once again called for an end to the war in Ukraine. Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov said.
Thousands of protesters have gathered in Geneva ahead of this week's Group of 7 G7 summit, which is set to bring together United States President Donald Trump and other world leaders in nearby France. The demonstration on Sunday was led by the so-called No G7 coalition, which is comprised of more than 60 associations and groups, including Palestinian rights advocates, feminist activists and environmentalists.
SpaceX went public this week in the largest IPO ever, making CEO Elon Musk the world's first trillionaire. Despite its name, SpaceX has been emphasizing the potential of its costly AI business. And competitors OpenAI and Anthropic may soon follow with their own public market debut. So on the latest episode of TechCrunch's equity podcast, Kirsten Sean O'Kane discussed what's looking like a hot IPO summer. And I
Islamabad, as the PPP's Azad Jammu and Kashmir AK chapter on Sunday urged the region's election commission to withdraw the election schedule for 12 refugee seats in the Legislative Assembly. Information Minister Atullah Tarar called for a resolution to differences through democratic and constitutional means ahead of the July 27 elections in AJK. The Joint Awami Action Committee JSE, had called for widespread protests demanding the abolition of 12 seats in the region's Legislative Assembly reserved for refugees from Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, who settled in mainland Pakistan after 1947. The UK and Japan have agreed a multi-billion-pound investment deal, which UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said will build a new era of cooperation between the two nations. Japanese firms will spend more than 9 billion on UK infrastructure and financial services and up to 9 billion on UK offshore wind, creating tens of thousands of jobs, Downing Street said as the PM met his Japanese counterpart, Sanai Takaichi, in London.
Lebanon state media have said at least 3 people were killed and 15 injured in an Israeli airstrike on Beirut's southern suburb on Sunday. The Israel Defense Forces IDF said it targeted a command center used by Hezbollah in Dahiyeh after the Iran-backed armed group launched aerial targets toward Israel. United States President Donald Trump has criticized Israel for launching an attack on Lebanon's capital, Beirut, on the day he has said a deal to end the US-Israel war with Iran could be signed. In a post on Truth Social on Sunday, Trump said the Israeli attack on Beirut should not have happened, particularly on a special day when we are so close to a peace deal with Iran. United States President Donald Trump has made a late endorsement in a Republican runoff for a key US Senate race in Georgia ahead of the US midterm elections. In a post on his Truth Social account, Trump threw his support behind US Representative Mike Collins over former football coach and political newcomer Derek Dooley.
Hundreds of pro-Palestinian demonstrators have gathered in the British capital to condemn an event promoting the sale of land and properties in illegal Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank. Demonstrators outside the so-called Great Israeli Real Estate event in London on Sunday shouted slogans and held posters reading, "Stop Israel's illegal sale of stolen Palestinian land," and "Thou shalt not steal."
Welcome back to TechCrunch Mobility, your hub for the future of transportation and now more than ever how AI is playing a part. To get this in your inbox, sign up here for free. Just click TechCrunch Mobility. I won't spend too much time rehashing the SpaceX IPO. Every media outlet, including TechCrunch, has spilled enormous amounts of digital ink on the company's first day of trading. But there are 2 important data points to note for anyone who closely watches the future of transportation industry.
Teenager was shot and buses destroyed during chaotic scenes in New York City that marred jubilant celebrations for the Knicks' historic NBA championship win. The New York Knicks beat the San Antonio Spurs 94-90 in Game 5 on Saturday to clinch the title for the first time in more than half a century. Former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has responded to criticism for skipping his country's first World Cup match to attend a USA game, where his girlfriend, pop superstar Katy Perry, performed. Sometimes supportive boyfriend duties call. But you know who I'm rooting for to take the cup, he posted on social media, adding a Canadian flag emoji.
British anti-Islam activist Tommy Robinson said he was detained at Heathrow Airport on Saturday and had his phone seized after a week when he posted heavily online about racist and anti-immigrant riots in Northern Ireland. Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, said on X he was held on Saturday evening for around 3 hours under the Counter-Terrorism and Border Security Act.
With the US and Iran inching towards an agreement to end the conflict that began more than 3 months ago, it's clear that some factions in Iran are not happy about what's on offer. Hardliners have been taking to state media with harsh criticisms of the reported details of the Memorandum of Understanding, and some rallies have seen chanting against the negotiators.
Bogota, Colombia. Two women rush onto the floor of Colombia's Senate chamber. The radiating beadwork around their necks and the red and green of their clothing cut through the dark-suited crowd of legislators. One of the women, Claudia Kiragama, steps behind the wooden podium in the centre of the chamber. She pulls the small, silver microphone close to her mouth. It is a moment to celebrate.
More than 360 people abducted by Boko Haram have been rescued in northeastern Nigeria. Former captives recount months of hardship, while families of those still missing say they are running out of answers for children waiting for their parents to return.
For a few hours on Saturday, it appeared that the long diplomatic effort led by Pakistan to end the US-Iran war was approaching its culmination. President Donald Trump spoke of signing an agreement on Sunday, while Pakistani and Qatari mediators echoed the same with high confidence.
Multan. The Federal Investigation Agency's FIA immigration wing on Sunday foiled an alleged attempt by a government employee to travel abroad from Multan Airport using a fake no objection certificate, NOC. In a press release, the agency said that a passenger identified as Mohsin Ali was travelling to the United Arab Emirates on flight number PA812.
Islamabad. PPP's Azad Jammu and Kashmir, AJK, chapter on Sunday urged the region's election commission to immediately withdraw the election schedule for 12 refugee seats, stressing the need for dialogue to defuse the ongoing crisis. The call comes ahead of the July 27 elections in AJK amid widespread protests by the Joint Awami Action Committee, JAC, over their demand to abolish 12 seats in the region's legislative assembly that are reserved for refugees from Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir who settled in mainland Pakistan after 1947.
Tehran, Iran. Markets in Iran have welcomed the prospects of an interim understanding with the United States that could offer relief after more than 100 days of hostilities and tension. The two sides on Sunday appeared close to signing the first stage of a deal, but there was also fierce last-minute pushback from hardliners inside Iran, as well as seemingly from Israel. The administration of US President Donald Trump has barred foreigners from accessing the top AI models developed by Anthropic, citing national security concerns, underscoring the US government's policy of controls over advanced technology. The United States measures come less than a week after Anthropic, the company behind the Claude chatbot, rolled out a new Claude Fable 5 and Mythos 5 model named Claude Fable 5 and Mythos 5.
I work from home, so I typically listen to audio through headphones or AirPods. But I've always wanted a desk speaker that doesn't take up too much space, which made the new Sonos Play a fitting first Sonos product to review. The Play, launched in March, is Sonos's first new device in more than a year. The 299 speaker is a hybrid, part home speaker, part portable. It sits on your desk in a pill-shaped dock, but at 1.3 kilograms with a utility loop on the back. It's easy to carry around the house or take outside.
Islamabad, 12 years after Khyber Pakhtunkhwa became Pakistan's first province to enact a right to information RTI law. The Free and Fair Election Network, FAFN, notes the pioneering framework remains underutilised and vulnerable to disinformation due to weak enforcement and structural gaps. In a policy brief released Saturday titled From Pioneer to Performer, making Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's Right to Information Act work against disinformation, FAFN urged the KP Assembly and provincial government to launch targeted legal and institutional reforms to transform KP's pioneering Right to Information framework into an effective mechanism for proactive disclosure and public accountability.